part 2 of IELTS speaking, which is where you need to speak for 2 minutes. It's tough. It's a really nerve-wracking, scary. Yeah, I guess so, but more sort of nervousness. That's the biggest thing. When you're doing it, you really have to collect yourself, remain calm. There's a lot of psychological things that go on in this test, I must say. All right, looks like we're live on YouTube. So just before we begin, if you're in the webinar, if my slides are not formatting properly on your screen, you may want to go to YouTube Live and just IELTS speaking. We should be popping up here. Give me a second. Nope, where are we? IELTS A2. Okay. Nope. Okay, good. We're live on YouTube. Fantastic. And automatically have 70 people there. So hello, people on YouTube. Let me just put my phone on mute. And now let me open my slides so we can get started. Cool. Good stuff. Hello there. My name is Jay. In this live class, I'm going to teach you about IELTS speaking part 2. Obviously, it's the second of 3 parts to IELTS speaking, and it's the most difficult part. It's the part where, well, let me show you exactly what you need to do. So on test day, you're going to be given a task card. In other words, it's a small piece of paper or they may in fact even hand you a book. And on that page is going to be look, let me just show you so you know what I'm talking about. You're going to see something like this. Okay, that's what's in front of you. And what's going to happen is you're going to have 1 minute to prepare, and then you have to speak for 2 minutes on this topic. Okay, so let's read this task card here. Imagine that you get this on test day. It says, talk about a building you like. What? A building? You should say where the building is, what it looks like, what it's used for, and explain why you like it. This is the sort of level of mediocrity, of boringness that you may have to face on test day. It's really difficult to speak for 2 minutes about a building, right? I don't know about you, but I would certainly struggle with that because I'm not an architect, I'm not an engineer, I don't think about buildings that often. We need a strategy so that we can speak for 2 minutes fluently and cover this task card. In other words, we want to make the examiner happy, okay? How do we do that? Well, we're going to tell 3 stories about this task card. We call this PPF. And we call it PPF because we're going to tell a past story, a present story, and a future story. Now, a lot of people are going to say, oh, but you have to talk about the task card. Well, you don't really. What we're going to do is this. So if you look at that task card, past story, present story, a future story. In other words, 3 stories, 3 different buildings. This makes it a lot easier. But it says a building. Well, if you look closely at the criteria, so in other words, this is how the examiner marks you. This is how the examiner gives you your grade. There are 4 aspects that they're listening for, okay? One is called fluency and coherence. This is how you get a 9, by the way, which I've done twice now. Fluency and coherence. In other words, how smoothly you speak and how well you structure your speech. Lexical resource is the vocabulary you use, how precise it is. Grammatical range and accuracy means how much grammar you have and how accurate it is. And pronunciation. There's nothing on here about speaking on topic. If you don't believe me, you can read this. You can pause the video and read this. It's from an IELTS examiner who has confirmed this. Cool. But the problem is I don't have 3 stories about buildings. Well, you can make them up. Make up the 3 stories based loosely on past experiences. In other words, in this part of the test, you can it's not really lying. I don't want to call it lying. I want to say you can tell stories, Okay. It's not being dishonest, because this is just a test of your ability to speak and use proper grammar and precise words. It's not a test of your honesty. A lot of people might struggle to tell. How you need to frame this to yourself is you're not telling a lie, you're telling stories. So whether it's your experience or another person's experience, or maybe you're just sort of embellishing, making stuff up, it's totally fine, because the aim is to get an IELTS 9. The aim is not to be honest. You're not talking to your mother or your friend, you're talking to the IELTS examiner. Tell a great story, tell 3 in fact. Cool. Here's an example. Whoops, what's that sound? Sorry about that. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to give myself 1 minute to prepare. I'm going to talk you through how I prepare when I do my IELTS speaking. And yes, I'm nervous. So I look at this task card and I say, talk about a building you like. You should say where the building is, what it looks like, what it's used for, and explain why you like it. Okay, I've now got about 40 seconds left to come up with 3 stories. Okay, so the past. What's a building from my past when I was a child? Okay, my school. That's an interesting building that I can talk about. I can say where it is, what it looks like, what it's used for, and explain why I like it. Okay, present story. I'm going to say at the moment. Okay, what's a building that in my life at the moment? Well, I could talk about my office, or you know what? I'm going to talk about my apartment block, my apartment building, because it's old and it's kind of interesting. I realize the time has stopped, by the way. Future, well, in the future, I'd like to go and visit Angkor Wat. Yes, it's a building. It's like a temple, for example. It's very interesting historically. Okay. I can honestly, from having done this test twice now, the minute you get to prepare goes by, boom, it feels like 10 seconds on test day because you're nervous. So you have no time really to write anything down. Like no notes. You certainly can't take notes or think about the structure, nothing like that. You've basically got enough time to think of 3 stories, 3 buildings. That's it. Then you begin. Okay. Now it's your turn. I want you to do this. Oops. Let's practice. We'll do the same one. I'm going to give you 1 minute. I want you to write down 3 buildings, 1 from the past, 1 from the present, 1 from the future. Then I'll give you 2 minutes after this to tell your stories. Your preparation time starts now. Okay, now you've prepared. The IELTS examiner will say, okay, now you can begin. So let's begin and do this. Ready? 2 minutes starts now. You can start speaking. And I've just realized I've given you a different task card. Wait. Hold on 1 second. Let me give you another one. You won't get 2. That was an error on my behalf. Yes, now we're ready to go. Okay. Boom, 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 boom. Just wanted to scare you. Okay, you have 2 minutes to talk about the 3 buildings starting now. How did you go? Did you speak for 2 minutes? Did you structure your 3 stories nicely? Did you start with the past, present, and maybe if you had time, finished with the future story? I hope you did. A couple of things I want to talk to you about. One is body language and eye contact with the IELTS examiner. It's important that you're friendly to the IELTS examiner. You don't need to suck up to the IELTS examiner. They're too professional. Even if you beg for a higher score, they'll never give it to you. They're only interested in your speaking, okay? But it is important to be polite and friendly. What's interesting is you don't need to worry about your body language while doing this task, okay? During this task, I almost entirely focus on my piece of paper. Sometimes I look up at the examiner, but really it's about me speaking for the 2 minutes. It's not a conversation, so I don't need to maintain eye contact. I just need to concentrate on what I'm saying, okay? So don't worry too much about body language during this part of the exam. I think it's also the other thing is the IELTS examiner will stop you at 2 minutes, okay? So as soon as you hit 2 minutes, the IELTS examiner will say, okay, you can stop there. That's not a bad thing. You can't finish perfectly and conclude perfectly each time. In fact, it's better to just keep talking until they stop you. What else? I'll do some Q&A at the end. Anyway, good. Let me just, before I move on, just let me check my slides. Okay, good. That's good. Okay, yes, cool. All right, let's do some more practice. Or just let me ask you a question. Would you like me to give you an example of an IELTS 9? Would you like an example? Yes or no? Just put it in. If you'd prefer you to practice. All right, you want to hear me do it? No problem. I promise you I have not practiced this one, so this is real. I'll put it on the slide so you can see the time ticking down. Okay, here we go, talking about a building. Today, I would like to talk about 3 buildings, in fact. I'm going to tell you about a building from the past, one from the present, and one from the future. So firstly, the most important building from my past, and one that I particularly like, was in fact my school. I went to a very interesting school in the countryside, and the building that the school was very beautiful. It was a very long building with a very long corridor up the middle. It was a very small school, but they must have spent a lot of money on the gardens because the gardens surrounding the building, which was brick, were particularly nice. There were also tennis courts and also a football oval at that building as well. Presently, I'm living in an apartment block, which is quite an interesting building. It's an old sort of building with very ornate details. It's in Melbourne, in Victoria, in Australia, and of course, it's used for residential purposes. So there are various people who live in this apartment building. I like it because I think it captures something about the old world, which is nice. I don't particularly like new apartment blocks and new buildings. I find them to have a lack of character, whereas my building has certainly a lot of character. In the future, I would like to visit various buildings around the world, but one that comes to mind particularly is Angkor Wat in Cambodia. It's not quite a building, I suppose. It's more like a temple, but I do think it has some characteristics or aspects that are building-like. It's a very interesting historical site. I believe it's located near Phnom Penh in Cambodia. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's particularly beautiful. And nowadays, it's just used for tourism. Okay, I don't know what that was like. I've done this twice. I've got 9s both times, so I suspect that it was pretty good. Okay, let me tell you what goes on in my mind when I do this. First of all, when you do IELTS Speaking Part 2, you do not see the timer. So I stopped perfectly there at 1 second. In the real test, you do not see the timer. You have no idea how long you're speaking for, okay? So what you need to do is you need to practice and you need to develop an internal clock. You need to start practicing with your stopwatch, with your phone, and you need to feel how long 2 minutes goes for. What you'll find on test day, though, is because you're nervous, the time goes a lot quicker. What you need to concentrate on while you're speaking is being very clear. Even I'm a native English speaker, right? But I really focus on speaking as clearly as I possibly can and pausing and not just going too quick, okay? I also try to use interesting vocabulary. I tried to use words then like ornate, characteristics, corridor. I purposely put in some of these less common words so that the examiner knows that I have a broad vocabulary. For me, grammar's not a problem. It's my native language, but you'll need to focus on being accurate with your grammar. You'll also notice that I structured my talk. First of all, I introduced it and I said, I'm going to talk about 3 buildings, a past, a present, and a future. Then I started talking about the past. And then I said, more recently, I sort of stopped that story, started my new story. I have been living in a beautiful old apartment building, for example, in the future. So you can use those to introduce your next story. That's all I can think of, but that's how it works. Now let's do some more practice. Here we go. You have 1 minute to prepare. Okay, you have 2 minutes now to tell your 3 stories. Cool. How was that one? That one was maybe about the same level of complexity as the one about the building. Okay, just another little tip. An interesting psychological tip. what you'll find in IELTS speaking as well is because you're under enormous pressure, you'll start to tell stories that are quite personal. It's very easy to tell personal stories, and you may become emotional. That's fine. Don't worry about that. Really don't worry about it. If you embarrass yourself or say something silly, it just doesn't matter, okay? The IELTS examiner is a professional, so go ahead and embarrass yourself. It's fine, okay? Just a little thing to think about. Let's do another one, and then we'll finish up with some Q&A, okay? Practice 3, here we go. You have 1 minute to prepare. Okay, you have 2 minutes to speak. Boom. Okay, cool. Well done. Just before we end, I want you to click the subscribe button below, because whenever I do a live class, if you're a subscriber, you will receive a notification on your phone so you can watch these classes as they happen, okay? So click that subscribe button. Also click the like button so this video will climb the ranks of YouTube. Right, let's just quickly talk about IELTS 9, or how to go towards IELTS 9. So I mentioned that there were 4 things, kind of more like 5 things. If you want to get an IELTS 9 or 8 or 7, you need to have fluency, which means you speak smoothly. You need to structure your 2-minute talk logically and well. You need to have precise vocabulary. You want to have accurate grammar, and you want to have clear pronunciation. These are really the 5 keys to IELTS speaking, okay? Fluency, structure, vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation. So the method that I've just taught you is excellent for improving, increasing each of these. Okay, guys, if you need any help with your IELTS test, do check out www.e2language.com and feel free to sign up for the live classes on the website there. If you need any help, we also give tutorials as well as writing feedback. We've got loads of practice materials, so do check out that website. Right now, though, I'll do a little Q&A so we can do that. If you have any questions, please put them into the chat. Okay, here's one. Pavan, how can the PPF method be applied in case the task card says, describe an important festival in your country? Okay, oh, that's a big one. Okay, so you might want to think about 3 festivals. One you went to when you were young, or you can just talk about 3 different festivals. That's also fine. You could say, okay, if you're in India, for example, you could say, okay, Diwali is an important festival in my country, blah, blah, blah. What's another important festival? I'm sure you can think of 2 more. So they might not necessarily be related to time, but you could certainly tell 3 stories. The key thing is here that you need to be flexible, okay? The PPF method works for almost all, but sometimes you may need to shift it a little bit. You also need to be flexible with the PPF method. For example, if it says talk about a book you like, okay? Just immediately think childhood, now, future. So you might want to practice this. Jay, may I ask where we can find these videos of online classes? I know that this one can be found on YouTube. I'm asking about the other videos like the one yesterday. They're on the website for paid users only. So you click on recorded videos in your student dashboard, and you can watch all of the methods lessons in the daily that are recorded every day. Okay, fine. So people are asking more about, different scenarios with the task card. Again, be flexible, practice it. It takes a little bit, but once you've got this idea and you've applied it to various topics, to various task cards, you go, aha, I know how to do it. So I won't answer specific questions on that. It's just practicing it. While I was doing the speaking practice, I made a mistake in grammar, but I corrected myself. Is this okay? Will my points be subtracted? Whoa, that's an interesting one. I don't know about self-correction, whether you're lose points for the first error or whether you don't lose points because you corrected yourself. It's probably a good idea to correct yourself, actually. So that's a good thing to do. I'm taking my test on the 2nd of December. It's IELTS General. I want to pass with 7 bands. Well, good luck. If you need help, check out the website. We can help you out. Thanks a lot for your great videos. They are really amazing. Thank you. I appreciate that. Let me just check out YouTube. See if we got any questions here. Any questions? Okay, I saw a question before that said about the buildings, okay, about the building. And the question was, can we tell 3 stories about the same building? You can, but that's difficult. I think past, present, future is a really good method. Makes it a hell of a lot easier. Okay, I have another question here, which is, what happens if you miss the future story? So you just tell the past story and the present story. That's okay. That's fine. In fact, what you'll find is that because the time goes so quickly, you may only have about 10 or 20 seconds for your future story. But the whole purpose of this, I'm sorry, I should have explained this earlier. The whole purpose of PPF is, yes, it helps you to think and to structure, but what it does, and this is why it's so clever, it provides you with great grammar and great vocabulary. Why? Because you need to use different verbs to express the time. For example, in your past story, you're going to be using past tense verbs. Present story, you'll be using present perfect continuous, present simple. Future, you're going to be using a range of modal verbs, going to, will plus verb. So what it does, because you have that variety, that range of grammar, and that it also increases your vocabulary score. So it's clever. It's really clever. Okay, Udara, I won't do that, but you can just watch the other videos. Any more questions? Okay, here's a question. What if I write other thing in the cue card and explain in another way while saying the answer? It's fine. You can write whatever you like. I suggest just writing 3 dot points for PPF. That's it. Correct. So here's a question. Jay, I wonder if I'm correct. I find in speaking that the examiner considers how well you can speak, not what a relevant response you give. Is that true? Correct. You have to speak about the task card. For example, if it's about buildings, you need to talk about buildings, but you don't lose points for not answering a dot point. And if you go slightly off topic, it's actually completely fine. In fact, there's no marking on relevance to the task card. Nothing. There's nothing. There's no criterion that says you must speak on topic. Okay? You can't talk about something completely different because you'll lose marks for vocabulary. I'm happy for you to do the research on this. I certainly have. Now, this is very different to essay writing. In essay writing, you must talk about the topic. If you don't, then you will lose whole band scores, maybe even 2. So do keep that in mind. Cool. All right, guys. Thanks very much for coming. I appreciate it. Do remember to subscribe, like, and share this video with your friends. I'm going to have a sleep under my desk. I'm tired. Ta-ta.